Hi, welcome to Buildings to Blueprints podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and on this show, we interview the movers and shakers in the world of property development and real estate. Now, before I dive in, very quick word. This show is brought to you by a new visual technology that is quietly making waves in the property industry. Developers are using it to cut design costs, accelerate off-plan sales in a way that sounds almost too good to be true. If you're curious, message me directly on Glen Palmer online or check out the show notes below. So today I am joined by Erik Zimmerman. He is Melbourne-based CEO of SiteTech Solutions, a construction site hire and safety tech innovator whose rare mix of psychology-driven people insight and futurist thinking helped him build and exit multiple ventures. And he's now pushing the building industry towards a smarter, safer future. Erik, I
Mm,
appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule. Thank you very much for this chat. Welcome to the
great,
show, and
great to be here. Great to be here. Good to join you.
thank you very much. So, one of the things that I ask most of my sort of guests is if time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to when you first started your career, what advice would the person that you are now today tell your younger self?
I, Look, and I think the biggest one of all by far would be to back yourself and surrender to your passions. I think, life is pretty short,
Hmm.
and just, getting into the things that you really love doing is critical. And I mean, I was living in the UK in 2002 and I jumped from a marketing and sales career into a people development role at the time. It was a huge career change, but I'm so, so glad I did it. And I've done that multiple times in my career. I went from a corporate life into being an entrepreneur, and when I turned sort of in my late 30s, and I've never looked back because I think it's been those changes that have just made all the ultimate difference. And look,
Mm,
beyond that, I'd probably say to my younger self, learn every day. The world keeps changing, and if you don't keep changing with it, disruption is everywhere nowadays. So I'm an avid learner. I love learning. I listen to things. I watch things. So what you're doing here is great. And if I had one final one, it would probably be work for someone that inspires you. It's
yeah.
really, really important to have someone there that you get inspired by and bring out all that passion. So those would probably be the three.
Yeah. I mean, out of all of them, they're pretty cool things to tell your younger self. Yeah, I sincerely believe that you've got to follow your passion in life because, like you said, life is very, very short, and
Mhm.
blink and it's over. So yeah, I agree with that, mate. So
Yeah,
SiteTech,
100%.
it sits
Mm,
right on the coal face of construction sites. So, what are
does.
the biggest operational or safety breakdowns you keep seeing on sites nearly every day, and how are you solving them with these smarter systems and tech?
I would probably preface it by saying that construction is only just getting started with the disruption and the technology that comes with it. I mean, I've had two businesses in the solar industry previously, sold them both, and I would say the technology there was moving at a much faster pace than construction. But it's actually super interesting at the moment seeing technology start to integrate into construction in a more rapid manner. So we're probably a little bit further behind other industries that I've seen, but generally where construction falls down is where systems don't integrate with each other.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. You see, there's still a lot of waste, in the construction industry, and so safety's quite hit and miss. I would say some companies are doing it reasonably well. A lot of companies are not doing it so well, and some companies are trying to avoid it to save cost. And so you see it all the time. We had a roof collapse here in Melbourne on a building not that long ago, and constructing a gymnasium, inferior products. And so, there are multiple stakeholders always in the construction industry, from the government to the local councils to the companies to the customers, and often things are falling through the cracks in between those. So, we're dealing with trades that have a habit of doing their own thing.
Hmm.
In our case, we have over 2,200 building sites with our equipment on it. And so maintaining a large fleet of equipment and a large, I mean, we've got 68 staff, and the systems you need to integrate and make sure that they're all working on the right things every day is where it's at, because you can waste a lot of money very, very quickly. So I would say waste is still a really big part of construction. There's a shortage. I'll get to that maybe as we go through, but there's a really big shortage of people in the industry here in Australia, and so it's a bit of catch up, and there's like the training regimes around construction are
Yeah.
still haven't changed a lot in the last 10 years. And so I think with the next decade is going to see a lot of disruption in many of those things. And so, yeah, and look, finally, weather is really becoming a part of it. Here in Victoria, where I live, we've had bushfires in the last few weeks. We've had floods in the last few weeks. And in
Yeah.
September, we had 122 kilometre an hour winds. So,
Wow.
it's the natural events are also, we had, 44-degree temperatures just a week ago. The poor
Yeah, I
tennis
know. I heard
players in
about
the
that.
Australian Open were really
Yeah, I heard
battling.
about
But, those sort of things can be quite disruptive as well.
that. Yeah. Yeah, and you talk about the lack of people coming through to construction. How are you actually challenging that, and how are you actually getting the new young blood into the construction industry?
It's an ongoing challenge. I mean, here in Australia, there's a skill gap of about 83,000 people in the industry. So, the government has set a target of 1.2 million homes in 5 years. We're already well behind that target. I think 55,000 short of where we need to be. They're predicting we're going to be 450,000 homes short of that overall target. And so, getting people into the industry, because there's a large cohort of boomers that are retiring.
Mm,
And so it's not only, skilling people up, but it's replacing the people that are exiting the industry. There's a lot of experience that's going with them.
yeah,
And so I think, and COVID hasn't helped. It put a real
no,
brake on everything all over the world. So, we've seen construction costs go up by 40% here in Australia, largely due to COVID. I mean, I remember at one point we were trying to import temporary fences, and the longest container took 7 months to get to Australia.
Jesus.
So, it's very difficult to run a business where actually everyone relies on us protecting the work sites. But when you can't get a shipping container for 7 months, it's pretty disruptive. So I
Yeah.
think the government's done a lot of things around free TAFE courses. Predominantly, TAFE is it's where they train the electricians and the plumbers, and
Mm,
so that sort of funding is very useful to get people in. And there's a pretty substantial immigration pool of people coming in as well. But then you've got to make sure that they've got the right training and standards. So there is things going on, but it's an ongoing challenge. And yeah, 83,000 people short of what we need. And so yeah, ongoing challenges, I would say.
yeah. So going on the back of that, then, if we had to fast forward 5 years, what does the future of construction look like? And what would the biggest shifts be? And would it be productivity? Would it be safety? Would it be site culture? How do you see it moving in the next 5 years?
I think digitisation is coming now, finally. Like, it's taken a long time to get to the construction industry, and but now I can see a scenario where there's this mega trend called the Internet of Things. The
Hmm.
Internet of Things is having connected devices, and so you'll find on an average construction site there isn't a lot of connectivity. There's not a lot of sensors. There's not a lot of um, connectedness between the site cameras coming in versus the Bluetooth technology. And so what ends up happening is you can't really remote monitor sites easily, but
No.
that's all about to change. We're going to see in the next 10 years, I think, a pretty rapid scaling up of digitization of work sites. In effect, any company in construction, if you look at our business, for example, We have a fleet of about 22 trucks driving around, picking gear up and dropping it off. We'll be in a much better position to know and manage those fleets of where they are. We'll be able to look at our fencing, our toilets, and manage those remotely. Everything will become connected, and so the team, the software that sits behind the work that they're doing, the cameras monitoring things that are going on, the software on scheduling. It'll be a bit like if you think of a Domino's pizza scenario,
Yeah.
where when you order your pizza, you can actually track the activity that's going on. So they've opened up the back end of their operating system to the customers, and I suspect there'll be a lot more of that going
Yeah.
on in the work site. So that's certainly one. I would think training will be another one that will be dramatically impacted. I have a technology startup called Alcazar in the training area, and I can't think of many industries that are going to be more disrupted than training. I mean, artificial intelligence hasn't really entered construction in any serious way yet, but that's coming also. And so what we'll be able to do, I think, in this world is highly personalized training courses. Instead of just putting everyone through the exact same thing, I think now we can actually look at, like, each and every job will have a unique set of skills that's needed for that. The training can be totally customized. The ability to practice through agentic AI is coming. And so I suspect that world will really be radically different in 10 years to what it is today. So
Yeah.
quite a few changes, and I think we need them.
Yeah, yeah, and fast changes as well. I mean, yeah, I've experienced it quite a bit now, where AI is just commonplace now. Wherever you go, whatever you do, AI is going to have an impact, whether you like it or not. It's here to stay. And let's hope that, in the future, it's just going to make it better. It's going to make it easier. And especially for the training side, some of the things, the technologies that I've seen out there in the UK that they are developing for training purposes now is phenomenal. Digital twins where you can go into, let's say, I saw one just the other day, an oil platform, and very high dangerous site to work on, and they were doing the training before they knew exactly where to go, what to do before they've even hit the site. I mean, that's how amazing this technology can be. So,
I, yeah, it's going to be. I mean, we've job scraped 1.35 million job ads, so each job ad has the skills you need to do the job, and with the Alcazar program, and so now you can actually come up with a customized set of the top 30 skills for every single job in a company. And on the back of that, you can then build, like, highly personalized training, so people do, before they get to job sites, they've not only seen the site, they've practiced what the work they need to do.
yeah,
That is going to be very, very different to what we're seeing today.
yeah,
And also the ability to look at quality control on construction sites using AI. It's
yeah,
only going to get better. And so, when we go with the SiteTech business, and if we're installing temporary fencing or portable toilets or any other safety gear on site, there's lots of photos. It's an average of 37 photographs per job site.
yeah,
But AI can look at those and actually then say, was this installed correctly? And so those are the kind of things I'm quite looking forward to with
mm,
AI.
yeah,
It'd be interesting to see how it goes.
yeah. And we've already briefly talked about the labor shortages, but what
Mm.
other uniquely challenging aspects are there about Australian construction in the workplace right now? Is it compliance? We talked about labor shortages. Is it program delays? And what do you think the industry is getting wrong, and how do you respond to it?
Yeah, I think if I go back to COVID, I mentioned earlier, it became incredibly difficult to get shipments of gear here. So we saw this rapid inflation happen as a result of material price increases, lack of supply of both labor and parts. And what happened, of course, as a result of that is we've had 10,000 companies go into insolvency. So they had signed contracts largely on fixed price contracts, and everything went up, 40%. So we've had a really bad run actually of insolvencies. I think it's about 26% of all insolvencies in Australia in the construction industry, and so that has not helped at all because some of those companies were quite big. We had a top 10 home builder go under, here, and so that has created enormous problems and uncertainty in the industry. We've got issues around coping with. I mean, house prices here are amongst the highest in the world. Sydney's average home price is 1.6 million. Melbourne is just about $1 million now. So in pound terms, that would be Sydney's about £800,000 for an average house.
Wow.
The median house, and Melbourne's would be £500,000 median. We're talking about the average. So, the challenge there is building enough of these houses. The government set this target, as I mentioned earlier, 1.2 million. We're going to miss it by about 450,000. But part of that is because land releases are very slow. Governments, I'm building a house in a spa town called Dalesford, and we went through 5 planning officers just to get planning. During that time, the rules changed 3 times. So, it often is a case of, the industry is kind of bound by a lot of regulation, massive staff shortages, and a lot of change. And then so what's happening is some of these big development areas are not being released, and there's just not enough homes being built around the country. It's a pretty universal thing. So there's some big challenges. I think we've also got issues around safety and compliance. It's very sporadic. And we have a business called SiteTech Safety, which has fall protection. And so as an example, the solar industry mandate that you put fall protection up if you're over 1.8 meters high. But often the guys will try and get away with not doing that, right? And so there's insufficient people out there policing the activity, and therefore it's some are doing it really well, and those people should be rewarded for doing it really well. But of course, the other ones that aren't doing it can cut their prices because they're saving money by not doing it. So we've got issues in the enforcement regulation as well across the board. So you're quite no shortage of challenges for the industry at the moment.
Wow. Yeah, Jesus. It's quite shocking to hear them statistics when you're telling them when you're speaking about them, because wow, how does a young person wanting to get onto the property ladder be able to afford a house like that?
It's really difficult, and it's becoming a problem in the sense that every generation in Australia has really had housing within reach. I mean, if I go back to when I was, 30 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, an average house was about 5 times income, 4 to 5. Now it would be 7 to 8. So couples are having to work together. So it's getting really difficult. And the fact is, this year, we wanted 255,000 houses. I think we've had 193,000 in home approvals. So we're well short of where we need to be in the industry. And that's pretty universal around Australia. And I think there's other things that are starting to get really coming in. So sustainability is a really big deal here. We're trying to phase out gas. I think that's the case in the UK as well. Electrification of houses. So, those sorts of transitions are proving to be challenging. And so, we the whole industry is aiming to become, I know when I lived in the UK, you've got double glazing as standard, all those sorts of things. Here in Australia, the standards aren't quite there at that same level. So there's a little bit of work that needs to be done there. The emissions of the construction industry are about 37% of worldwide emissions. So we as an industry need to take responsibility for that. And so at SiteTech, we've essentially offset 100% of our emissions with a company called TreeCoin, actually, tree planting. And so they create these tree coins, and we buy 392, the equivalent of 392 tons worth of these tree coins every year to offset them. So I think those sorts of things are coming into the industry. and will play a bigger role in the next 10 years as well.
Yeah, nice. So just moving along, how important is visual communication on site? Not just for marketing boards, but for alignment across crews, your subcontractors or your stakeholders. What does good site communication actually look like in practice?
Well, I think communication comes in three parts. There's the marketing element of it. So that's brand communication, if you can call it that. There's some
Hmm.
really interesting things going on there now where, traditionally you would have these rather boring fences with maybe some banner mesh advertising. We acquired a company called King Fence a few years ago, which is now effectively like a billboard across the front of a house.
Yeah.
And that's been super popular. So quite a large number of the top 10 builders in Australia are using that technology now.
Hmm.
And so that form of communication is changing pretty rapidly. You get, I'm sure it's the case in the UK as well, where companies are paying for billboard advertising, but they've got all these sites which are in prime locations, and you wonder why they're not using that real estate. Then there's consumer communication, and particularly if I look at it around safety, which is our angle, is how do you then engage consumers in the safety of a site? So we've been putting QR codes on our site so they can report any incidents at all just by simply scanning the code, taking a photo of what the issue is. It goes straight through to our rapid response team. So what we're looking to do, because trades sometimes, sometimes report issues and often they don't.
Yeah.
And so we're inviting the consumers to get involved in all of this. And I mentioned earlier the communication around where the job's at and the Domino's pizza example. I think that, you know, if you think about, people are now used to ordering Uber Eats and they know exactly where things are at. That's where we've got to get to with our
Yeah.
communication around where the job's at, what's next. And then finally is the trade communication side of things. And you know, um, the reality is that the software is just starting to come into the market now. What we're starting to see is software around safety culture, around actually invoicing and billing, and then actually operationalizing a team of tradesmen, blue collar workers, where it's getting out into the market now, but it's still pretty unsophisticated. I think there'll be enormous leaps in that front, on that front, I should say, in the
Yeah.
next 10 years from now.
Wow. And you strive to bring the latest tech for all the construction industry. Is this something that you're actually trialing now that businesses just aren't even aware of?
Yeah, there's a few. Some of them I can talk about, some of them I can't. Rubbish dumping's
Yeah.
become a big problem in Australia. So the landfills are getting expensive. So we're seeing 22 to 30% increases in people just dumping their rubbish in unused building sites, which has become incredibly expensive. There's people out there having to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars clearing their sites from all the rubbish that's being dumped on them. So we have actually been trialing a technology. It's actually a UK technology called Fence Lock, which turns a temporary fencing site into a semi-permanent fencing with big ground screws. And that's been fascinating. Everywhere we've put that, it has stopped the rubbish dumping. And, ultimately that's a really good thing because,
Mm.
we're trying to take cost out of the market at the moment. The other one is this digitisation of work sites. So we've got trials going on with multiple sites at the moment where, the first step was the QR code I mentioned before, engaging the consumers, but there's about 3 generations worth of that behind that coming now,
Hmm.
in other ways to digitize work sites. So pretty exciting space to play in, but that's definitely coming. And the third one, I guess it is in the market now. We've been trialing it for a while, but people around the world might not know is that branding that I was talking about, and actually using that branding on work sites. King Fence is the one we're doing. And it's just made a huge difference to our sites, and just the overall appearance of them is so much better and cleaner and more professional. So there's a few things, and there's other things in the sustainability area we're doing as well. that'll be launched in the next 12 months. So if we speak in about 12 months from now, Glenn, I can reveal our others that we've got 2 patents we're about to submit.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad that you're moving forward. There's a lot of technology out there that you can make use of, and it's good to see that you guys are actually on the forefront of that. Erik, loved having you on the show. Really enjoyed our conversation. Glad to see that you guys out there, are working hard to get others safe home at night. Once again, thanks to my listeners and viewers of YouTube as well. Erik, just before we sign off for the day, if the listeners or viewers want to get in contact with you and learn about what you actually offer at SiteTech Solutions, what are the best ways for my listeners and viewers to do that?
Yeah, I'd go to the website, sitetechsolutions.com.au or sitetechsafety.com.au. And there's inquiry forms on there. If anyone's interested in anything there, please get in touch. We'd love to talk to you.
Brilliant.
And great to chat with you, Glenn.
Yeah,
Keep
you
up the
too.
good work.
Thank you very much. Well, that wraps up today's episode. If you're still wondering about that prop tech thing I mentioned at the start, good. You should be. Drop me a message and I'll show you how the early adopters and what they're up to. You've been listening to Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. Today I was joined by Erik Zimmerman. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.